The beautiful thing about the place, and I think this is something that I think will be part of our house, was walking in, you couldn't tell who lived there and who didn't, who was staff or who was a resident. And everybody was just interacting and being people with each other. You know, we went to the park, we played games, and it was just, I don't know, it was just, there was something really magical about it, that tight-knit community. And, you know, I think it's just so superior to a hospital, where there's just, you know, these clear demarcations of who's an authority and who isn't, who has power and who doesn't. And I would really like to honestly see this become the norm, as much of a pipe dream as that seems like right now. But this is something I really believe in. This is really kind of what I want to do with my life, and I would say that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Yeah, that touches me. I've heard the story before, but it's touching.
So I think what really got me interested in this type of work and working with kind of, I guess, altered realities is a good umbrella term, is my own experience on psychedelics, which I think made it really very clear to me how even as functioning as I was, how there were kind of like these projective processes going on for me all of the time, that there were kind of you know, underlying paranoid processes going on all the time. And I think in part that was familiar to me, being growing up as a Christian, where it was very important to hide a lot of things, including being gay. And I think that really came out on psychedelics, and it really felt like that all that terror of being kind of found out was being brought to bear in those first psychedelic experiences, and it manifested in like a fear and even a certainty that I had gone insane forever, kind of never to return. I did return, but I kind of had this interest in the growth that could come from these altered experiences of reality. From then on, I returned to psychedelic experiences after that, and also like an intense sympathy for people who had altered experiences of reality from then on. And I since then I've worked at Zendo at Burning Man, which is a place where you can go at a festival if you're having like a really bad trip or something like that. But that experience was also profoundly like supportive of what we're trying to do as well, because people who were having really bad trips also sometimes were having more than just a bad trip. They were having a prolonged psychotic reaction, I suppose. But anyways, yeah, so for me, these distressing experiences are sometimes the most raw moments where you have an opportunity to connect with some of the deepest influences in people's lives. And that was true for connecting to my own experiences, and also to connecting to people at Zendo or people in clinical work. Yeah, and not to mention really the incredible community you get to be a part of if you work towards something like this. You know, a community of people who have organized themselves around accepting the most insane aspects of themselves and others is the best shot. It is the most fertile ground for authenticity, I think, and that's something I'd really like to go for as well. Yeah. Do we want to talk a little bit about also just some of the things that are going on and stuff?
Yeah, what it is. How about you're sort of organizing them all.
So also, I guess I've been involved in this for about a year and a half, and Connor and I kind of got involved in it around the same time. We've all kind of been working. Some of the things we've been doing over the past year and a half was we got a website up and running. So if you look for Gnosis Retreat Center, you can find it online, find information about it. You can donate to it. And this is all kind of part of the scheme of getting the house, getting residents, getting funding. And then so we had a website up, and then we also had a number of events that we've hosted at CIS, a talk with Michael Thompson, talk with Michelle and myself and one other student, talking about radical communities and why they're important. Nita also just did an event at CIS, and all of it was really, and Nita's event was about the shamanic perspective on mental health and transformation, and all of it was used really to get hundreds more people who attended these events and who watched them online to hear a pitch about Gnosis, but also to reshape how they thought about mental health, not just thinking about it in a pathological way. And to that end, we also had a year-long salon, and hundreds of people came to that over time as well. And then finally, where we are now is we're in all of this kind of fundraising and awareness building. We're really, I think, chomping at the bit to do work with the people who we're trying to help. So next month we're launching Gnosis Home Services, which is a program to go into people's homes and provide therapy there. And so this would be helpful in a crisis. People who need several hours at a time spent with them. So we're collecting a number of people who are willing to do that work and able to commit time to it. And so next month, we're excited to start really taking in clients who maybe they don't want to go to the hospital. They want to have an alternative. We don't have a house yet, but we can provide this service for sure. So I think we're excited about that. And I don't know. Should we? Yeah. That's where we are now.
I think we just wanted to see if people had questions or wanted more information about it, or reflections and thoughts that it brings up in you to think about something like this.
If you were to tag the dynamic of therapies, then do you do therapy, or is it just interpersonal? How would you describe, what is the therapeutic focus?
You mean in the
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
house, yeah, as opposed to an in-home thing, which is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of the household is to provide community. We don't see ourselves doing therapy or treatment in there, but it's a profoundly therapeutic environment to be with other people that are within a container that's goal is to be authentic. I mean, it's, for those of you that just came to Heather's afternoon workshop, there's an element of that. If you didn't come to that, what that is just what happens when the container is just set, let's just be ourselves. And when you have people in a variety of states of consciousness, you may find that it's all over the place. There may be disturbing things that happen, there may be wonderful and joyous things that happen. And then, you guys can speak to it as well, but the construct is that we encourage people to be in psychotherapy, but we're not providing it in the house necessarily, although we will probably get together as a group in the evenings and hold space for people and so forth. Yeah, but psychotherapy is something that can happen outside of the house and with the people that are involved.
That's a good question. Wow. In fact, I think you were at Esalen 2 years ago, and I did a
Yeah.
paper on friendship
You know, and,
and sanity, and that's really kind of the heart of our concept of what's healing about living in this kind of environment, which it does have some parallels now I think about it with what we were talking about earlier with the brotherhood of eternal love, turning on the world, to love. The way we look at it is that, the reason people go crazy is because they're brokenhearted. And so we want to create an environment where we can befriend them. And that's the therapy. We're just being friends and helping them. Anybody here, I'm sure everybody here knows how tricky friendships can be. And, some people have problems keeping friends. And I know that in my analytic practice, I have a lot of patients that complain about this. I don't know why I have a good friend or more friends. It seems so hard, to find a friend. And inevitably that comes down to maybe a problem they're having, with just opening their heart a bit more. Of course, you can't say that because that's too simplistic, but well, if you have somebody who's, say, diagnosed psychotic or has been in and out of hospitals all their lives, and the only people they can relate to are their families because they can't seem, other relationships are threatening to them, then what they don't seem to be able to manage, the reason they can't leave their family, they can't establish intimate relations outside the family. And we feel that's the bridge, that's the necessary thing. That's why just getting off medication doesn't solve that issue. In fact, it makes you more vulnerable. And the thing that we noticed at Portland Road in London was that was the most difficult, precarious issue that people typically struggled with. So people like Nita and myself, and there were quite a few other people that never really had any history of incarceration in hospitals or anything like that. It was easy for us to make friends. But we noticed that a lot of the people there really had problems with that, so we would start out by establishing relations with them and then hoping that would springboard to them reaching out to each other. Kind of like porcupines making love kind of stuff, where you kind of back into the relationship more often than forward, but that can take time. And that's kind of what's missing in these halfway houses and these different kind of places that are really more intended to just helping people through a crisis. So that's why in our model we want people to commit to a year at least, and just let nature take its course, and that's what we would be helping them do. Therapy, I think, helps that process because, as I mentioned in my talk this morning, I think a therapist is a friend too, or it should be, even though you're paying for that friendship. It's a person that is not judging you and is interested in you and wants to help you and isn't making demands on you. Well, those are the things that good friends do. So sometimes you need a professional to help you with that, and then ease into people that are not professionals who have their issues, with being intimate and being friends. So that's kind of our concept, and that's partly why we're so excited about people like Connor and James. You don't want to just have a house with staff and clients. You need a mix. You need people that are there like us, for other reasons. And these guys are crazy enough to want to do that. So we're very excited that that they're turned on by this like we were, when we were their age. So.
Well, all of it, there's this flurry of the group homes working around, but they don't have a treatment paradigm. In other words, it becomes basically, you know, almost the jailer in the jail.
Exactly.
You know, and so if it's a workshop paradigm that is, you know, that a lot of these group homes are begging to find something like that.
You can go to places that, you know, charge you $20,000 a month,
Yeah.
that out in the country, and you pet horses, and you farm, and they keep you busy, you know, from the time you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed at night. That's their treatment model. That we're just hanging out, getting bored, you know, and letting people establish relations just like you would in any household. Yeah, Mary?
So what is the what's the sense of how this is safe from the authenticity of being murderous towards someone you live with, or the horrible things that happen in communities and groups?
That's a great question. It's about selecting the right people.
You
It's
do
not
have
for
to.
everybody.
It's not for everyone. And
But how
I mean,
do-
that's
We're not
always-
going to invite violent people to come live with us. We're not going to.
how would you know?
Well,
Oh,
you can know. I mean, there are times when you don't know. It's true. There's a risk, but that risk is no greater than walking down the street. In a sense, you don't know. But when you have I feel like an interview process where everybody's involved and people come and meet you as the household group several times before they move in, you can find out a whole lot about people and get a sense of that. And that's not to say that people aren't going to have moments where they're angry and gestures of violence as opposed to murderous violence. And I mean, the safety issue is really important. I was having this conversation, I think, with Heather at breakfast, that, you know, if I was going to drill down to the one sentence about what Laing was about, it was about having a safe place to go. And so we all contemplate that issue repeatedly. The least of my worries, in some ways, is the violent piece, because there are so many other, on that continuum of completely passive to really violent, there are microaggressions all along the way that we do to each other all the time.
Yeah, I didn't mean just physical violence.
Right. So that is something, that attentiveness to how we treat each other is really important. So authenticity is not just defined by doing whatever pissed off act I want to do, but it's more about coming from your essence and your heart. And when people are doing that, I have found in general that those incidents of microaggressions are greatly reduced, and they're also talked about. I mean, one of the things that happens in families that creates trauma and violence, even non-physical violence, is not talking about what's going on, not noticing, not paying attention. So that's the evening gathering, really, while we say we're not doing therapy. I have to say it looks a whole lot like group therapy at some point, because people are really encouraged to talk to each other, and then have some people with some skill to really get underneath the nuances and bring out more authenticity. So there's a lot that goes on, but we just don't call it treatment. There is a lot that goes on that creates that safety.
But why don't you call it treatment if it is treatment?
Because I don't think it is.
It's not what people typically call it.
It's the way that term is used in the ordinary language. I mean, it's how, you know, it's
You
working
said it
with,
was like it resembled group therapy.
it resembles group therapy, and it has a lot to do with how we treat each other versus treatment. And treatment often, in the way we use it, is implying that somebody's doing something to somebody else, whether it's benevolent or not.
I would even argue that it doesn't resemble group therapy.
Yeah.
Because group therapy is pretty structured.
All right, so group
this is
therapy,
very
the way I do
unstructured.
group therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, there it
The
is
structure
though.
of an evening meeting, that's a structure.
Well, but
no.
this is a good
Would you
point.
call having dinner with your family a structure?
It's more
Absolutely.
Well, I would
Okay.
call that treatment.
But you don't call that treatment. You don't call that treatment. And thank you for pointing that out, because I come from a rarefied world where when I say group therapy, what I mean is very different, and there it is again. So you're right, if I call it group therapy, people are going to think that group therapy thing, which isn't what we do. So it's,
I hate group therapy, so don't.
yeah.
Go ahead. Chelsea?
But you like dinners.
Dinner's good.
Oh, did you guys find a house that you're kind of eyeballing, or just?
No, but we're now in the process of going out to neighborhoods and looking for maybe the perfect community. And of course, apropos to treatment facility, there's no neighborhood that's going to welcome a treatment facility for people that are renegades from a mental hospital. So we're calling it Gnosis Retreat Center. Not treatment, but retreatment.
I think it would really help if you could give us a dollar figure that would get you going. You said you're raring to go, you have potential people interested, you have your team. So if I were a very wealthy person, and if I asked you, pull out my checkbook and say, what can get you started? Because you never know who is in the audience when you give these presentations.
$200,000.
To start in order to let people come and not worry about what they're paying.
And
For a
that
year.
would get you going.
That would get us going. Well, that plus the clients that we think we have lined up would get us in the door, and that would last us a year. Yeah, Will? And then-
Can you kind of sketch the business model? I mean, are the costs of the house going to be covered by private pay by the people who are
Yeah,
there?
it's going to be expensive.
And then have you thought about a model? Because myself, in my private practice, I charge going rates, but then I also have a sliding scale that I'm allowed to
Yes.
subsidize some
Yes.
of the people that I work with. So
Yes, that. So
Yeah.
it's sliding scale, and that's part of the 200,000, because it'd be nice to get started and not have to have it all coming from the client.
The nominal fee would be $6,000 a month.
Which is, like you said, it's relatively cheap for this kind of.
Relatively cheap, but
And
obviously
slide
that's
down.
about $70,000
But all
for a
you
year
need
of
is
that.
a few
Yeah.
people paying that top level, then you can boom, you have
Yeah.
enough for one
Yeah.
people at the lower
Exactly.
subsidized rate.
Exactly. And, as we get contributions, donations, we can use that to subsidize people that can't afford that kind of fee.
And what about the other, like say, these two young men, would they be paying for the privilege or being paid or?
Yeah, they would be paying for the privilege. Maybe a reduced fee.
Yeah.
And you guys would live there? Or would
Well, we wouldn't.
no,
They would.
They would live there
Well-
like 24/7
Potentially.
for 1
Yeah,
year.
potentially.
One year commitment, or you want
That's
one
a
year
nice
commitment of the
thought.
permanent residents who are coming to live there? The one
Yeah,
year
what we envision is, say, 6 fee-paying people that are looking for an alternative to hospitalization, 2 people that are paid live-in staff, and then 2 adventurers who are, who are there for their own benefit. I lived in one of these houses for 4 years, and it changed my life. And I think anybody living in that environment, it would change their life.
It can, again, liken it to a model of apprenticeship, so that you could be there learning and having an adventure.
To Fritjof's point, as far as what we need, I know you guys are all thinking, how can you help?
Yes, of course I
But I think the most likely way we're going to get funding is really from residents who are able to pay. So if really the best thing is if we had referrals of residents who are able to pay that fee. And then the other thing would be any donations. But other than that, I think there's also, we have an online presence now, a social media presence as well, where we put on events, where we promote various things, and where we're also going to be promoting the home services. So referrals to that end, all go to support the same project.
And there's places like Cooper Reese in North Carolina and Austin Riggs, Massachusetts. There's a number of high-end treatment facilities for the super rich. $20,000-$30,000 a month Yeah, it tapers off after a while, but if we got some of those clients, you know, who are willing to give us more than the 6,000 a month, say, because they want to help us get this thing going, that would help balance it. Yeah.
Have you like written this up as a blog on Map America, for example? Because I think that would get a lot of potential.
You have it.
I think we have them planned though.
Well, actually, I've done a couple of articles in Mad America, but I don't think we have done
a good
like a
idea.
formal announcement on Mad America about the
There
project.
are people who would actually move to the area.
That's a good idea.
You know, another idea would be to have a lecture series in San Francisco.
Mhm.
You know, there are a lot among us here who could give a talk. I would certainly donate a lecture, which would cost you a very bare
It's a
minimum of
good idea.
$1,000 if you were to pay me.
Mhm.
So that's 1,000 in terms of the lecture.
Yeah.
And there are enough people in the Bay Area who would come to that and whom you could charge because you say it's a benefit. You explain the Gnosis idea, you say it's a benefit, a fundraising series, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
James is our man for that kind of thing.
I love
Jump on that,
doing talks and stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very
It's great.
generous. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a family support network in the South Bay, which I'm a little bit connected with Nina that's connected.
South Bay Country.
Yeah, and they should know about this, that there's a lot of super rich people down there who have family problems.
Right. Jack?
Would you?
I don't work on case management, you guys aren't like, this is what you do. So I have my 2 cents is, I think a lot of the places you named in, you know, Sierra Tucson, and there's a whole circuit out there, but until you're running,
That's
it's
true.
theoretical. Like,
Yeah.
so you really need
Exactly.
seed money because
Yeah.
you need to prime the pump.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna send hypothetical people
Yeah.
to you.
No.
And the people they would send you this week, they'll be somewhere else. You know? So
Right.
it makes sense, you need $200,000 so you can prime the pump. Because once it's going.
Then you've got something
The
that's
amount
real.
we're talking
Yeah.
about is I would think there'd be a lot of people who would send you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jack. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we're leaning towards just starting with an in-home model, just to sort of generate some funds. But I don't think there'll be any shortage of people when the place
If you
exists.
can put them somewhere, I mean, people are desperate
Yeah.
looking for alternatives to all the big psychiatric things out there.
Yeah, Chelsea?
Along the sense of it not being treatment, because it definitely is a healing place. And I think anyone that's read any of the Soteria stuff would see that. But I think one of the biggest downfalls or sadnesses I would say about Soteria was that at the time when he started to describe the outcomes was about the time that he was kind of getting excluded from his position, you know, and so many different things.
You're talking about Lauren Mosher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, what kind of things are you guys going to be pre-post testing, or just keeping an eye on? Even though I hate the terminology, that's not what I mean, but I would think that there's a lot of really good information that would come out of it. And I'm wondering, are you guys already thinking about how to catch some of that, so that even if it's just, let us tell you a story of what happened this first year, it's still a full, this is what it was before, this is how it was at the end.
Phenomenological research, case studies. Yeah, that's the blog. Yeah, yes, I agree. And it's very tricky, isn't it? I mean, just as you're saying, you sort of cringe when you say those words. And I think, stories, case histories, and your thoughts about that. I mean, I'm not really interested in doing pre and post studies, but I do think telling the story is important.
Well, I've actually been playing with the idea of doing something like that around the house once we get going with my doctoral dissertation.
There you go.
It would be something.
Yeah.
That whole research angle part of it is a bit of a conundrum because it's just not our language, you know. I mean, if like all of you, if you read the website that we put up, you'll see it pretty clearly. It's not really a treatment paradigm, and yet we are saying that we can help people, you know, who end up getting incarcerated. So yeah, we'll have a record of some kind, but it won't meet the gold standard, you know, of what passes today for getting grants from the government or the county. But our hope is that, you know, we fund it more or less privately, and